Aram, Anuj, thanks for joining me today. I'm Andrew Kendall. I'm with Atlassian. Been here for coming on 4 years. We've seen a tremendous amount of change, both internally at Atlassian as well as our customers in the government. And so really looking forward to having a conversation today and kind of talking through some of the things we're seeing and the great things that Atlassian is doing to help our customers further their own mission. So, Aram, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and excited to be talking about this topic, which is something that we've been kind of going through, and I've personally been going through. I've been covering the federal civilian market for the last 20 years, right? At different software companies, big enterprise companies. And it's interesting to see that this topic has continued on, and I can just say like there's a lot more urgency to it. But having said that, I lead the federal civilian sales team at Atlassian. I don't have the tenure as Andrew does, but coming in, I joined the company in October of last year. And over the last 8 months, what I have seen is that our ability to drive our customers' mission in this time of inflection and change is even more important. And I think what my role is to enable our team to understand our customers' mission that much more better, so we can really lean in to solve some of these problems that we'll be talking about. So that's a little bit about me. I'll kick it off to Anuj.
Hey, hi everyone. This is Anuj Susdeva. I'm the Chief Executive at Clovity. We are an Atlassian Platinum partner. I'm privileged to be sitting next to Andrew and Arham and talking about the federal civilian sector and as well as about the legacy modernization, actually how it's transforming the new era of the federal services, especially with the new administration and how to make it more optimized.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. So let's jump right into it. Aram, you introduced a little bit about you've been here for, in this space for 20 years. And, the first question is really, we continue to see these legacy systems, and they're, dominating the federal space. And so how do we get around that? There's a tremendous cost of keeping them running, and how do we get around that? And what are the government, customers that you're working with doing to kind of solve those problems?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, right? Like you said, these legacy systems have been around for a long time. What I have noticed is that the government really innovates in cycles. And when I was at Oracle, we saw that firsthand, where they went from a very old system of that they were using for Oracle, and then they kind of jumped like 2 innovations over, and they went to the latest and the greatest. But it takes time for them to kind of really get to that. And the reason for that is that when government invests in these systems, right, because of the way they serve the citizen mission, they have to be very careful when they make changes to their systems, right? So over time, as they implement the system, it gets very ingrained in how they work, on how they deliver their mission to the citizens. And what happens during that phase or that period of usage of that system is that it gets very, very complex. It becomes fairly bespoke to how they work, but it also creates a lot of inefficiencies, right? Over time, a lot of different teams come in and work on the systems. It kind of creates, each team imprints their own perspective on the systems. And over time, what happens is that they just inherently become inefficient. Data becomes fragmented. There also comes in a lack of real-time system access, right? And the reason that they can move away easily from these systems is that there's a sense of security that has to prevail and underpin everything, anything that the government does, right? So when you take all that into consideration, our government customers can't really flip on a switch of a dime, right? They have to kind of really take into account all of the stakeholders, all of the things that they're delivering, take security and compliance into consideration, and then make a move. And that's why we still see a lot of these legacy systems linger around for a very long time within our federal agencies. That's at least what my observations have been. I don't know if Anuj, you can add anything else.
So by the way, I really like the way you put it. The careful part is where the legacy system is, right? Because because the way it's at the end of the day, it's serving US citizens. And then the careful part is where the key is, because what happens is when they adopt a system, they sort of have a journey with it, and then in and around that, they ending up buying other things, and that's kind of where the fragmentation get created,
Right.
right? And then pretty much they don't realize that in the modern era, which something could be resolved with 5 systems, they actually have 400 systems for that, right? Because it's so fragmented. And now to top it all, the worst is you ended up hiring talent for each of those, some which are legacy oriented talent, like, and then some which are so modernized, and then the upskilling of the talent becomes so difficult because some of those talents are sitting in sort of dark ages, whereas few are, obviously the new tools are being adopted. But that said, look, I'll tell you something. In the modern era, I mean, especially, I know, I mean, there is a lot of connotations around AI, where it's headed. But the good news is, because with AI getting introduced, I think the federal government, or in general public sector, doesn't have a choice now left to actually take that leap, a big leap, to get into the modernization. Otherwise, I mean, as we say it, right, if they don't, it's like there will be a huge disaster in general. Again, the serving of the citizen at the end of the day is the key, but the objective can only be resolved now by adopting that big leap and going from that 400 systems to a tool rationalization to down to 5, and which is where I believe fundamentally, I mean, I know, like, sort of where Atlassian fits very well.